Mr. Nicola Rega to do his presentation.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thanks, ENEA, the Italian government, and the European Commission for inviting us to this very important event. I'm going to speak from a different perspective. I'm representing an industry which is an energy-intensive industry. So, of course, when we look at energy, we might have a different perspective on that. And I'd like to see if we can bring some added value in the discussion, very good discussion we had until now, and bring some new ideas forward. So when we look at energy, I need to tell me how do you manage to solve it? Give it time. Okay, that's fine. Too much. Okay, there we are. I guess you're all familiar with this slide. It shows the amount of money that will be needed for in terms of investments in the energy sector by 2020 to meet the already agreed targets in the legislation, and of course moving forward. And we know that these figures, it's in a way also a bit conservative because we never price in exactly what is the price of public acceptance. So probably this 800 billion euros is probably already more than that. Certainly one could look at it from a perspective of say, how do we raise this money? From our perspective, of course, is who's going to pay for this money, for these investments. And when we go forward, we see that energy prices are already a problem in Europe nowadays in terms of industrial competitiveness. On the left side, I hope it's visible, but that is the evolution of gas prices in Europe and the differentiation with the rest of the world. And the graphic on the right side, it shows the evolution of electricity prices in Europe and compared to the US. And certainly from an industrial perspective, from an energy-intensive businesses, this is clearly not a good sign. Having said that, we thought that it was time to go a bit further in the analysis, understanding is it all necessarily bad, or are there also some positive signs that we should look at it? And in the next slide, yeah, what we've seen is that indeed energy price, well, electricity price is going up in terms of cost, but the wholesale price has been going down by 40% since 2008, and this has been certainly due to the substantial increase in the share of renewables in electricity generation. So the question was that we posed ourselves was, can we do something about that? Can we turn the threat that we're having in terms of increasing energy prices into an opportunity? And that's where the demand side kicks in. Now, when we talk about demand side programs for industry, we used to talk about a concept which has been, and it's nothing new, it's been there for, I guess, at least 2 or not, if not 3 decades. And that is pretty much, I try to summarize in a very simple sentence, which is, I import electricity in my industrial site unless I'm incentivized not to do so. So it's what we usually call peak shaving. Now, there are certainly some pros. The pros of this is that a company would shift production or will reduce its own production when electricity prices are cheaper or where there is an adequate reward for this activity. However, there are also some cons, and that is that it requires flexibility on the production side. In our sector, that cannot be done that much. We can do it on a marginal level, but we have a process which pretty much runs 24/7. So we don't have lots of possibilities. The impact of stopping our machines would be, in terms of damage for the production side, so big that would not be adequately compensated by this demand-side response. Moreover, we see more and more in the industries all over Europe that we are in phase of restructuring. So we are optimizing more and more production at production sites, which means that also this flexibility is getting slimmer and slimmer. However, that's not all. We could also think about something else. So that is where we're trying to focus a bit our attention. And that is, can we turn the pyramid, the paradigm upside down and say, what if the motivation would be, I do not import electricity unless I'm incentivized to do so? And why am I saying that? Well, from our side, from pulp and paper industries, they are, when it comes to electricity, half of percent of our needs is auto-generated. When it comes to heat, that is fully auto-generated on site. So we are sitting outside the electricity system. That's why I was mentioning thinking outside the box, because we are outside the box. Box meant the electricity network. And there is a lot of energy which is generated outside the electricity network. And the question is, can we maximize that energy use? Of course, it's not a straightforward answer, because there are also some side issues that we need to be addressing, and that is how can we make a business case out of it? A business case where, of course, there must be an incentive based in that importing electricity would have to be, of course, cheaper than auto-generating it. But also, we need to make sure that the business case is all there so that the investments will be paid off. But some people were also asking yesterday numbers and figures. So let me give you, if the IT assists me, some ideas of what are these figures for our sector. This is the amount of electricity, with energy that we are generating on site. I've converted into terawatt hours. That's electricity and heat. These are figures for 2011. And if I compare with the figures of 2011 for photovoltaic and wind in Europe, you see the numbers are starting to get a bit more of sense. And for sure, since 2011, the figures for renewables have been going up, but I don't know for how much, but even if they were doubled in these 3 years, still it would have been a significant impact if we could maximize this uptake of renewables. And this is a graphic which shows 1 day in Spain, when you had variation of electricity production from renewables at a time where there was no particular demand for it. And what I tried to do in a very rudimental way is to say, what if you could take this electricity on site, so pretty much do some what is called valley filling, and basically create an extra demand ad hoc for that amount of time, and then you will create a space that could be then filled with whatever. It could be more renewables, could be better, well, we could have a better running our system for power plants. It's secondary in my views. So to sum up, there are some benefits in what we've been investigating and pushing forward. Clearly, it will meet the 3 EU energy policy challenges that we've been hearing quite a bit in the last 2 days. Competitiveness, because they would have industry in keeping their energy costs down. It would have positive impacts for security of supply, particularly if we would be able to reduce the demand for gas. And from an environmental perspective, of course, shifting from use of fossil fuels to more renewables would have also an impact in terms of lower CO2 emissions and lower air pollutants. It would create value, and that is important, I think. When we are discussing about what is the most cost-effective solution, this approach would allow industry to keep on producing goods, producing wealth, which means growth and jobs. From an electricity system perspective, as I showed in the previous graphic, it would have we could reduce renewables curtailment, which means less cost for compensation, or it would increase running hours for thermal power plants, so the whole compensation for capacity remunerations would be also lower. And in any case, this kind of approach would require lower capex compared to building new power plants or having significant grid expansions, which means that no matter who will do it, will bring benefits in terms of cheaper electricity. Of course, there are also barriers. That's why things are not happening. There are issues with regulation that has to be addressed. There's also with the issue of visibility for the investment, and that has something that has to be addressed as well, including if we want to make major changes, we will also have some address what is the impact of additional upfront cost if we want to do something else than just producing goods. Having said that, I'd like to leave you with three final points that I'd like you to have as a take-home. The first one is on urgency. We are daily confronted with news addressing the risk of security of supply for Europe, and what does it mean, loss of competitiveness for our industries in terms of jobs and all the social consequences that come to that. So I think there is a sense of urgency in doing something about that, which leads me to the second point, which is we need to make some strategic choices. And these last years particularly have shown that if we also have lower industrial demand for energy because of lower production, that has also a side impact on the way we will decarbonize our energy system. The overcapacity in many markets is also because of that. And I think that is something which we need to address. And thirdly, we are talking about innovation. It seems that we cannot have a speech in innovation if you don't cite, at least on the sideline, Steve Jobs. That's the name of the period now. What this whole Steve Jobs did was not about creating new technologies, but was about creating new use of technologies, and then, of course, improving them. So, and most of these things that I've been talking to you until now, it's something we could already doing with current technologies, with some cross-fertilization from one sector to the other. So the question is, can we do it? And I think the answer is yes, but do we want to do it? And then I think it's up to us, all of us, to make it happen. Thank you very much.
And the next presentation is the one of Mr. Pasquale Di Franco, Head of Energy Efficiency Department of the ENEA.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here in this moment presenting you the policy introduced in Italy since a long time on energy efficiency. Resuming what the chairman said some minutes ago, this is the main issue of the IRM, the integrated roadmap, to address energy system and innovation chain integration. How do we see that? Mainly in our agency, we have to do with technological measures in energy efficiency. And we ourselves started to know that it is not sufficient to give answers to the big energy question. I mean that it is necessary to follow the entire path from conceiving the energy products, I mean in the laboratories where the research of base is conducted, and to follow the subsequent implementation of the technologies and techniques, having into account all the chain, starting from the research to the production, to the use, to the best use of the energy products. So we need a holistic view of all the chain, and the integrated roadmap, in our opinion, has this big issue to answer. Now, I think that all of you know that Italian government decided to create in 2008 the National Energy Efficiency, coming from an imposition coming from the directive number 32 of 2006. And the decision was not to create from nothing this new agency, but to create them inside the already existing Italian Agency for Energy and Sustainable Development. ENEA. What was the rationale of that? To profit of competences and resources already existing in our agency, to complement and integrate the mission of the new Agency for Energy Efficiency, to promote and support energy efficiency policy and measures. We are a governative agency, and our master is the Ministry of Economic Development. So what's happened in the near past was that this is the center of our universe, and ENEA deal with energy. This is a little a plant of research used as a source of neutrons to do researches in nuclear fields. Then we deal with new technologies. This is a patented solar trough to produce electricity, starting from new materials to get the solar power based on the use of melted salt instead of the diathermic oil, which is a material more dangerous and hazardous than salt. Then we are engaged in the environment and sustainability. You see there not anything having to do with the environment, but the sustainability. Our researchers invented a new kind of basis to sustain the Reyes bronzes, able to resist to earthquakes of 7-8 degrees of the Richter scale. And in this sense, we sustain even the Reyes bronzes. Well, the Energy Efficiency Agency has been created inside all this field of research. So we have a look at all the chain of researches in the energy fields from the cradle to the grave. Now the issue and the challenge is we have dealt in the past mainly with innovative technologies, but we have to face even non-technological issues because they are completely part of the energy efficiency chain. So we have to deal with capacity building, innovative financial solutions, information, awareness, helping consumers to manage their energy demand and become actively part of the energy chain. So you know that based on the integrated roadmap, member states and commission should develop in the near future an action plan who lies down coordinated and/or joint investments by individual member states. Now, a brief look at our history, which came from the far in time, 1966. If the Europe is poor in energy sources, Italy is the poorest in energy sources. So we had to deal with this problem since a long time. If this is the time, we started in 1966 by issuing the 373 law, the first law in Italy dealing with energy efficiency in buildings in particular. In 1982, we issued another law to grant subsidies for energy efficiency measures. In 1991, followed a new law followed on rational use of energy in Italy, dealing both with technical and financial solutions. It was mainly an incentive law. The years you see are not chosen by our legislators for chance, but they came after the keep oil crisis happened in 1973, and then after the Iranian crisis, and then after the Chernobyl disaster. Then you know that in 2002 the issue 91 on EPBD on buildings was issued, and we adopted it in the 2005 with the legislative decree 192. But before, in 2004, we issued the national scheme on white certificates. It was invented starting from nothing. There was no directive or no or anything happened in the world that forced us to do that. Then in 2006, the financial law was issued, and it foresaw the fiscal deduction of 75% for energy efficiency measures implemented in buildings. Then again, we have in 2006 the 32 directive. We adopted it in 2008 by the legislative decree 115. Then the present directive on energy efficiency we have just adopted on the last July. And another instrument we issued in the past was the so-called conto termico, thermal account. It not gives the sense of this instrument. Grants for measures on buildings. Well, I would like to draw your attention on what we think is the best practices of all our history on the issuing in energy efficiency, which is the white certificate scheme. We were the first in the world adopting such a scheme, and now obliged schemes have been are part of the new legislation at the European level, maybe coming from our experience of success in this case. In this moment, there are in Europe 6 member states having something similar to our scheme, and 3 other member states are on the way. Other than Romania and Bulgaria, there is Malta, who is trying to introduce this new kind of instrument to increase energy efficiency in a country. Just having a look to the complete scheme, there are obliged subjects, which are the DSOs, having more than 50,000 customers, and they have an objective every year of energy saving to reach. Then they face all of the final users coming from industries, service industries, households, transports. They can do themselves energy efficiency measures inside the universe of final users. Then they ask the Italian market operator to issue energy efficiency certificates, stating that in reality some energy saving measures have been implemented. So in this way they can satisfy a part of the obligation. There are other actors able to operate in the market, which are DSOs having less than 50,000 customers, or ESCOs, or energy managers. They also can implement energy saving measures, obtain energy efficiency certificates, and then they can sell certificates on a spot market, a dedicated spot market to exchange certificates between not obliged and obliged subjects, or via multi-bilateral transactions. In this way, the DSOs, the obliged subjects, can satisfy their obligation. They can get a financial retribution from the system, not important. There are sanctions. These are the objectives, the goals reached until 2012 by this system. You see, we reached in the end 6 megatons of energy saving. These are those foreseen until 2016. Not important. These are the major challenges, because this instrument can be improved in the near future, a path to more simplification. Maybe we have to face some difficulties in evaluating additionality in marginal measures implemented, because the easiest measures have been implemented yet, and we are expecting more difficult measures to be implemented in the future. And the interference with the discipline, with state aid legislation, and maybe for the saturation effect, because energy efficiency measures are not there are not so many energy efficiency measures to implement, and we have always find out new measures and new ways to implement to improve the system. Thank you for your attention.